Some places do not appear on maps. They appear only when the heart is ready. Hidden just beyond the ordinary world, the Enchanted Tea Room welcomes those who arrive carrying grief, a longing, unanswered questions, or a quiet ache they cannot name. Its door opens not by chance, but by need. Within its warm stone walls, time moves slowly. Teacups are poured with care. Flowers seem to listen. Stories unfold gently, one visitor at a time, each revealing moments of loss, hope, healing, and unexpected grace. No one is rushed, no one is judged, and no one leaves quite the same as when they arrived. The Enchanted Tea Room is a place for anyone who has ever needed reassurance without sermons, longed to feel seen and understood, wondered if healing could come gently, believed that God might meet us in ordinary moments. Each visit is a reminder that even in sorrow we are not alone, and that sometimes healing begins with a warm cup of tea, a listening heart, and a light left on. Come in, sit down, rest a while. The tea is waiting. The tea room was never built, not in the way houses are built, with measurements and foundations and deeds that tie them to the earth. It came into being the way mercy does, quietly, unexpectedly, when someone reached the end of themselves and did not know where else to go. At first, it was only a pause in time. A young woman named Beulah sat beneath an old oak tree at the edge of a meadow on an ordinary afternoon. She was tired in the way that settles deeper than the bones. She had tried to outrun grief, reason with it, pray it away, but nothing had worked. She stopped walking. That was all. And in stopping, something ancient noticed her. She set down her bag, then her expectations, and without meaning to, the weight that she had been carrying for years. She brewed tea because her hands needed something gentle to do, with herbal tea leaves she had gathered earlier without really knowing why. The water in the kettle warmed slowly, patiently. When she drank the tea, time loosened its grip. The air thickened, not heavy, but attentive. The light softened, as if it had learned kindness. Beulah felt it then, the unmistakable sense of being seen without being examined. Someone came along, not walking toward her, but arriving, as though the space beside her had remembered it could hold another soul. The woman who appeared did not ask where she was. She simply sat down and exhaled. Beulah poured another cup, and that was the moment the tea room chose its purpose. It understood something essential, that healing did not require walls, only permission. Beulah felt a calling to continue this gift she had been given. She added a table near the oak tree, then a chair. A warmth came that did not come from fire. She did not question it. People rarely question what meets them exactly where they are weakest. Others began to find it too. A man walking a road he no longer trusted, a mother whose grief bent time around her, and a woman who had forgotten the sound of her own joy. Beulah met a young man who was a carpenter. They fell in love and were married. He built her a quaint little cottage near the old oak tree for her tea room, and they lived upstairs. They had 2 daughters born and raised in the little cottage, and they grew into loving and kind young women. Her oldest daughter, Karen, married and had a baby named Katherine. They both spent their lives working alongside Beulah in the tea room. Her youngest daughter, Alma, never married, but moved away and had a successful nursing career in the city. The small tea room was on a quiet road just outside of town. It sat beneath a wide oak tree with a curved stone path leading to a white wooden porch. Roses climbed the fence, lavender grew beside the walkway, and when the windows were open, the scent of warm scones drifted into the garden. As Beulah aged, she was known for 3 things: her gentle listening, her strong tea, and the way people always seemed to leave lighter than when they had arrived. No one quite understood how she did it. The war had brought many heavy hearts. Soldiers passed through town, families worried, mothers waited for letters. Yet somehow, when people stepped through the door of Beulah's tea room, the world slowed. Beulah would greet them with the same soft smile. "Well now," she would say kindly, "you look like someone who could use a cup of tea." And she always seemed to know exactly what kind of tea to make. For the grieving, she brewed chamomile with honey. And for the worried, she poured mint and lemon balm. For those who had forgotten how to hope, she served rose tea with a warm pastry beside it. People often said they felt something unusual while sitting in the tea room, not magical, just peaceful. As if the tea room itself were quietly holding their burdens. A small brass bell hung above the tea room door. Every time someone entered, it rang softly. Beulah loved that bell. She once told her daughter Karen and granddaughter Katherine something curious. "One day," she said while wiping a teacup dry, "that bell may ring for people we cannot yet see." Karen laughed. "What do you mean, Mama?" Beulah simply smiled. "Oh, I'm not certain. I just feel like this little tea room was meant for more than we fully understand." When Beulah turned 80 years old, the autumn leaves were especially bright. The oak tree in the garden dropped golden leaves across the stone path. One evening, after closing the tea room, Beulah sat alone by the hearth with a warm cup of lavender tea. She thought of all the years she had spent in the tea room and how she had loved every minute of it. She missed her loving husband who had passed away many years ago, but the tea room had continued on and kept her going each day. That evening, the room was particularly quiet and peaceful. She looked around slowly. The mismatched chairs, the wooden tables were worn smooth from years of visitors. She looked at the shelves of jars that held the tea blends her and Katherine had made from the herbs grown in the garden. Every corner held a memory. Beulah whispered softly into the stillness, "Lord, I hope this place did some good." That night she went to sleep in the small room upstairs, and her body never awakened again. Karen and Katherine were heartbroken. They still operated the tea room, but it was different now without Beulah. But not long afterwards, on a cold and rainy day, while they were riding together on their way to the tea room, their car suddenly lost traction, slid off the side of a hill and crashed, and their bodies died that morning, but their spirits went elsewhere. But something unusual began happening. Neighbors passing by said they sometimes saw warm light glowing through the windows late at night, even though no one was inside. Others claimed they heard the soft ringing of the bell when the door never opened. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, people swore they could smell lavender tea drifting through the garden. Years passed. The building eventually disappeared, but the stories still remained. When Beulah had closed her eyes that final night in the tea room, she expected only rest. For a moment, there was silence. Then a warmth surrounded her, not bright or startling, but peaceful, like the soft light of early morning. Beulah slowly opened her eyes. She was standing in a meadow she did not recognize. Tall grasses swayed in the breeze, and the air smelled faintly of wildflowers. Her body felt light, stronger than it had in years. She looked down at her hands. The ache she had carried in her joints was gone. Her breath caught in wonder. "Where am I?" A gentle voice answered, "You are home, Beulah." The voice was kind, steady, and full of a love so deep it made her eyes fill with tears. Beulah turned. She could not quite see a form clearly, but the presence before her was unmistakable. It was God. Beulah lowered her head, overcome. "Oh Lord," she whispered, "was my life enough?" The answer came softly. "You spent your days listening to the weary, comforting the broken-hearted, and offering kindness when the world felt heavy. You showed them what love truly is, and you believed and trusted in the Lord with all of your heart." A pause followed, warm and patient. "Yes, Beulah, your life was enough." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She had never thought of her tea room as anything special. She had simply poured tea and listened. God spoke again. "But there is something I wish to ask you." Beulah lifted her head slowly. "You may rest here now in peace." The meadow grew brighter, and Beulah felt a deep calm settle in her spirit. But then the voice continued, "Or," the breeze moved gently through the grass, "I could give you another gift." Beulah waited quietly. The little tea room you loved so dearly could continue. Images appeared before her: the oak tree, the stone path, the warm hearth, the wooden tables, visitors sitting quietly with cups of tea. "You could remain there," God said gently, "in a place between times. Those who are hurting, those who are lost, those who need a listening heart would find their way to you." Beulah's eyes filled with tears again. "You mean I could keep helping people?" "Yes." Her voice trembled slightly. "For how long?" The answer came with a quiet smile in the words, "For as long as kindness is needed." Beulah looked down at her hands again. All those years she had wondered if what she did mattered, if serving tea and listening to people's troubles truly made a difference. Now she understood. She wiped her tears and took a slow breath. "Well," she said softly, "I suppose there are still many people who could use a cup of tea." The presence around her seemed to brighten warmly. "Then it shall be so." In an instant, the meadow faded. The scent of wildflowers became the familiar fragrance of lavender and warm bread. Beulah opened her eyes again. She was standing inside of her tea room. The same wooden tables, the same kettle warming on the stove, sunlight streaming through the windows. Outside, the oak tree rustled gently in the breeze. Beulah looked around in quiet amazement. Then the bell above the door rang. She smiled, straightened her apron, and walked to the door. When she opened it, a tired young woman stood on the stone path looking uncertain and lost. Beulah spoke the words she had said so many times before. "Well now," she said kindly, "you look like someone who could use a cup of tea." And from that day forward, the little cottage beneath the oak tree became known in whispers across time as the Enchanted Tea Room. What no one on earth knew was this: the moment Beulah's earthly life ended, something extraordinary happened. The little tea room she loved so dearly did not vanish. Instead, it was lifted gently into another realm, a quiet place that existed between moments of time. The cottage, the oak tree, the stone path, the warm hearth, all of it remained. And inside that timeless tea room, sunlight streamed through the windows. The kettle hummed softly on the stove. Not much time had passed when the bell rang twice, and in stepped Karen and Katherine, who had been given the same choices from God that Beulah had been given. The three women were united in the tea room once again. They hugged with great love and spoke of the wonderful opportunities that they had been given by their wonderful and loving Father God, and how their work would continue as long as people were in need. They were truly blessed and very grateful. And so the tea room continued, not bound by years, not bound by the world, but open to those whose hearts needed rest. Travelers came from many places, some from the past, some from the future, some from moments when their lives felt broken. And Beulah, Karen, and Katherine welcomed every one of them. The Enchanted Tea Room, a place where time slowed, where stories were heard, and where the women who once served tea in an earthly tea room continued to pour kindness forever. The Enchanted Tea Room does not belong to a map. It belongs to the moment someone whispers, "I can't do this alone anymore." And the tea room answers softly, "You don't have to." If this story brought you a moment of comfort, you're always welcome to come back. Like and subscribe so the tea room finds you again, and the Enchanted Tea Room will meet you again here for the next story. Until next time, The kettle will be warm, and the table will be waiting.